Hey there, everybody. So today I'm very excited to have a very special guest with me who I don't normally get to spend a lot of time with. This is James Horton, a seven-figure fiction author. There. Okay, let's try that again. You were saying, so we're going
Okay,
to talk about.
we're going to have four subjects that I thought we would go over today, just to kind of repeat that. Finding your unique voice, overcoming self-doubt and perfectionism, consistency and discipline, and I'm going to end on building an audience. Now, one of the things that probably don't know about me is I've been a very consistent writer, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've now published over 200 books in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So
we're impressed. Color us impressed.
that's where I just want to back up that I know a little bit about what I'm talking about when I start talking about how to write consistently and how to write a lot.
Cool.
So starting out with finding your unique voice. That's something I've gotten from a lot of different writers. Like, how do I know that I have a voice that I sound like me? That they find that to be the hard part. So my advice, first and foremost, is to not worry about it. All artists start out as imitators. That's what they do. You get inspired, you like the style of some author or an artist, and you mimic that. There is a reason for the old saying, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If you imitate someone's creation, you are admiring them and their create. And we all start out that way. My earliest work when I first started was so inspired by Tolkien, and you may remember Piers Anthony.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody will, but my early writings read like those two had a brainchild and just were spitting out new stuff.
How interesting.
Then a little later on, when I was a teenager, I really got into Stephen King for a while. So everything I wrote sounded like Stephen King style of writing, and it was very kind of horror based and like creepy, whatever. But you develop your voice by writing. You start out imitating others while you're learning. You learn structure, you learn the way to put words together, the way someone else has done it. And over time, you'll not only figure out why, but what you like about that style. So that's where your style and your voice will start to come in. And it becomes part of your technology of how to write. So no one that I know of in the entire universe starts out with their own voice. It's not something to focus on. What you need to focus on is in telling a really good story. And a story and simplicity is a start, a middle, and an end. That's it. Along the path, things happen and the characters change, and you can get into all these technical books that you can read about the character's journey and the hero's journey and story arcs and plotting and blah, 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 blah. And they're helpful. And if they resonate with you, great, right? And they can help you make that leap. But the simplicity is a story is a start, a middle, and an end. Things happen along the way and people change their viewpoint. That's it. Keep it as simple as possible and then bring complexity in later. These simple changes to your viewpoint can really be earth-shaking. To the characters, I'm back up a minute, the characters can have these really earth-shaking moments as you're writing them and they go through, and it's big to them. But what happens is they make choices, they react, and the story moves ahead based on that. That's the simplicity of telling a story. Now,
I like that you make it simple because I feel like so many books try to overcomplicate it, or maybe they're not trying to overcomplicate it, but they succeed in overcomplicating it, regardless of whether they're trying to or not. And it can feel like, kind of like you were saying, Sharon, like can feel very overwhelming to understand how to write fiction. But you're right. Everything you just described is sort of like the bare bones basics of every story.
Every story. It doesn't matter if you're reading Jack and Jill or you're reading, the latest epic fantasy world. Right. They're all built the same. And things happen. And then how we tell that story is your unique voice.
Yeah.
Right.
And to your point as well about like imitate before you innovate. I say that to my clients all the time where it's like, I have a proven method. Try doing it exactly the way I taught it. And then if you want to put your own spin on it later and that works for you, great. But like, it's sometimes really difficult, I think, as creatives. We have this natural tendency to want to alter things. and that can be so destructive to a working system.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you've got a wheel. Don't recreate the wheel.
Right.
And just to touch on that, there are so many books about craft and about how to write. And my biggest advice is when you're looking at those books, look at those authors and see if they've been successful. See if they look like they're ranking well on Amazon. You can kind of get an idea. Are they making money?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you get, and I've seen the markets flooded with these, with with authors who can't make any money as an author, so therefore they write a book telling you how to write, which doesn't really work.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. And also, did they become successul the way you want to become successful?
Exactly.
Like, again, there are multiple pathways to success as an author.
And you're each going to have your own journey.
Right.
So when you're writing, the biggest thing I can tell you is the most powerful two words in the English language is what if. You know, put together two characters and say, okay, what if this happened? And then you've got a what if, right? You got like, you know, you go to the grocery store, you're getting some milk and aliens invade. Okay. What then?
Right.
You know, that's your what if. What if aliens invaded when I go to the corner store to buy some milk? You know, and then you go from there, you go, okay, well, what then? And then what happens next? And what happens next? And that right there opens the door to telling them that's it. You just told a story.
I love it.
Those are the keys to the door. You come up with a character, you try to make them as real as possible, mostly in your own head. Like, and I don't pit 90% of the details I know about a character on the page. It's just there's somebody in my head. They're like, and you know, they come from wherever they come from. I don't know. I never have figured that part out. But you know, that's it. You just put them in a situation and you go, what then? And then you insert whatever makes sense to you. It could be, you know, you could be writing a romance, you could write a horror story, you could write an alien invasion. It doesn't matter. It goes from then based on what you like and what kind of story you want to tell.
Cool.
And then you've written a book. That's the next thing. So yeah, that's kind of the rest of it. Mostly don't stress the rest of it.
Okay, can we pause here and ask for questions? All right, Sharon, so if you are going to write a fiction book, do you have any questions for us about craft of how to actually tell a story before we move on to his next topic? It's okay if there isn't.
Okay, I have heard this saying. I can't remember who said it. I think it's a famous like author about like killing your darlings. So how do you know when something is worth keeping and when you should start over?
That actually leads into the next subject,
which
is overcoming self-doubt and perfectionism. So let me just segue into that because I think that might answer your question.
Cool.
Or at least help with it. Over self-doubt and perfectionism, all of us are going to have that, and especially if you're a creative, especially if you're a writer, we've all got this negative voice. It's not good enough. Oh, what I just wrote is the worst thing ever. It's not as good as insert my favorite author is not, or whatever. We're going to have that, right? And looking back, kind of what you're talking about, when I first started professionally writing, I was very married to my words. Like they were my words, and I put all this work and create into them, and they were beautiful and they were perfect, exactly the way I wrote them. And when we first started, my wife was doing the editing for us, and the second or third book I wrote, she cut 10,000 words out of that book. Like in the first half of it, she just chopping words everywhere. Oh, no. It was literally terrible. It was so painful for me.
Oh no.
And at the time I coined the phrase, editing is where good words go to die.
Oh no.
And it did lead to a bit of a disagreement.
I was going to say marital strife. I don't think Ben and I could survive a conversation like that. I'm pretty sure one of us would murder the other.
It was interesting. And we learned a lot.
I'm sure.
But it taught me a lot that when you're first becoming an author, you're very married to the words you created, right? Like you sweated on them, you thought about every word you put on the page, and these are the perfect words that have to be there that tell that story. But then what I started learning is that was really my problem. That was my viewpoint problem, right? And that was my own self-doubt that I was kind of a pretender and I wasn't really good enough. So if you got rid of my words, then actually that just confirmed the fact that I wasn't good enough.
Interesting.
So it was, playing into my own doubts.
Yeah.
Because now I'm much more in the camp of, cut those bad boys out. Let's make this story as tight as possible. If they don't serve the story. And that's what she was doing, So I'm very much in the camp of trim, 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 trim. But that leads me to talk about perfectionism, because I've talked to a lot of writers, because there's a difference between a writer and an author. An author's published and making money. Right? A writer is somebody who's like trying to get there.
Right.
And I know people who have spent years on one book, and they just keep working on it, keep working on it, keep working on it, and they never finish the book. That's perfectionism to the extreme. Yeah. And that doesn't work either because you're never going to get done. and you're never going to make that step to be an author. Partly fear, partly whatever is happening with them. So, you know, if you bring it down into that, perfectionism is the enemy of survival. Life is messy. I mean, look at where we live.
Perfectionism is the enemy of survival. I like that. That's an interesting rule of thumb because, again, you know, since Sharon is here, I think we both struggle with that, right? This has been a big factor for both of us. And in the hour-long writing session we did before you came along, I've been editing my book, and I told myself this is the worst thing I've ever read in my life. You know, like here I am with like multiple published books and like thousands at this point, thousands and thousands of readers who have loved my books. Yep. And I'm going like, this is garbage, you know, like, and this is like, I think I'm on draft like 10 million at this point of this particular book, and I just can't stop editing it. And it's funny you say that because I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I need to sit with that one a little bit.
Exactly. And that, because it builds to the next thing, is that every author I know has an editor running in our head when we're writing.
Yeah.
And the biggest secret I can tell you is shut that thing off. Finish the draft. Editing is not for your first draft. Period. I don't even edit my second draft. And I actually only do 2 drafts. And my second draft is the one I send to the editor and gets edited.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for years and years and years, so I write very clean. Like my first draft is publishable. My second draft, I'm going through and just layering in more story and making sure the visuals and I'm making it pretty.
Yeah.
But the story's there. But that's not, whether that's the case for how you write or not, get that first draft done. Hardcore, no editing, don't look back. The only thing you do when you open up the document is, where did I leave off at? Okay, good, right. Don't edit a line of it.
See, I've accomplished that. I've gotten to the point where I can finish first draft. Not to say I don't ever edit a single line, but sometimes I have to like read the last few paragraphs to remember where I stopped. Because unlike you, I'm not writing for 5 hours a day.
Right.
Sometimes I have to remember where I stopped. But I can get first draft done. And then that's when the editor kicks in and it's like, whoo, it's all downhill from there. So it's really cool. I like that idea a lot.
Dude, get that second draft done and then send it to a professional editor.
Yeah.
Don't mess with it, right? Get somebody else's viewpoint. Or if you use beta readers, I know you use beta readers.
I use
a beta reader. Get somebody else to read that book for you. You're too close to it.
Yeah.
And you're got this thing in your head, this perfect world in you, this perfect thing in your head you're trying to get on the paper.
Right.
And so you'll just play with it forever. You'll tinker.
Yeah.
Give it to somebody else and then see what they think. And then they're going to point out the flaws. I totally don't understand what was happening on chapter 4 here. Where did that come from? It doesn't make sense. And then you go back and look, oh yeah, I had this whole thing in my head that didn't make it on the paper.
Yeah.
I've done that one. I used to do that one really bad. Like it was in my head, I never made it into the paper, but and even when I read it, when I read it, I'll dub it in. I'll put it there.
Oh no.
When you're going back through, I'm like, I put it there, and then I'm like, what happened to it? Or I put things in there that I'm really bad about putting things in twice. Like I'll have an idea I really like, and I'm like, I'll put it in, and then like 10 chapters later, I'll put that same idea in there again because I was so happy with it.
Such a good idea.
It's a really good idea. So obviously, it needs to be in the same book twice.
Right.
Readers love that. So that's one of the big things to do now. Part of how I've developed my skill in writing so fast is I use a method called Pomodoro, which is Italian for tomato, I think.
I actually didn't know that, but we use that in our writing sessions sometimes.
That is so helpful, because what I found for me, I think Pomodoros are supposed to be 20 or 30 minutes. For me, I have 15 minutes of attention. That's kind of where my brain works well at. And I think everybody's got to find where your brain melts, on the words. So I do like 15 minutes and I do 10 minutes of something else. Like 15 minutes of just words, boom, just raw words, get them out. And the other thing I do is I track.
Before we go on, for anyone who's watching the replay and isn't familiar with Pomodoro, will you define it?
Yeah, it's basically using a timer. There's fancy apps on your computer that you can get that will do it, but that set it up where it'll time for, you can set how long, 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then it stops you and it times again for 5 or 10 minutes for a break.
Cool.
And so you work real hard, you take a break. You work real hard, you take a break, and you can, poke at your phone, you can play video games, whatever, I don't know, read a book, whatever makes you happy, right? Anything to shift the gears.
Yeah.
Before you go back into what you're focused on.
I find that really helpful when I'm building funnels, because funnels are also a very creative thing where you have to have the copy, which is the words. You have to really be in a creative state of mind to write really good sales copy.
Yeah.
And then you also have to be in a really creative mind to do all the design of the funnel.
Exactly.
And I find that the Pomodoro method works great. And then I'll just, work on the funnel for maybe 30 minutes. Usually for me, it's 30. And then I have to go and like scroll on my phone for a few minutes or go for a walk or like do something else. I can't just be there for 5 hours,
Yeah, that's exactly very similar to what I do.
Yeah.
When I'm trying, especially if I'm trying to get a lot of words. I don't use the timers as much anymore because I've done it for so many years now. I kind of do it instinctively.
Yeah, it's a habit.
It's a habit now, but building that habit was super powerful.
Cool.
And doing that's how I average 2,000 words an hour.
Wow. 2,000 words an hour.
And it's just because I focus for 15 minutes, I take 5 minutes off, focus for 15 minutes, I take 5 minutes off. And then about 2,000 words an hour is what I write now.
Wow.
And that's just rough words, just get them out there and get a story told.
I'm impressed. This is how you're writing so many books.
Exactly. The other thing I do recommend though is track your word count.
Mm-hmm.
Know where you're at, so you can make a game, and then it becomes a habit, and then and you can also see the book adding up.
Cool.
You're not in the middle of the story anymore. You're outside doing a little bit of admin, and you're like, oh, I'm like halfway through a book. I'm at 30,000 words. I'm at this way. I'm at this count. That really helps keep you motivated. And if you can, like I said, I write for about 1.5 hours to 2 hours a day now is what I write, and then I do much other work. So keeping on the theme of perfection and keeping that going, you can do multiple drafts, but I like to do 2 drafts and then get it out of my head. And I go on to the next thing. I'm done with that book until it comes back.
Yeah.
I'm writing the next book and then it comes back and then I'm totally fresh because now I've kind of forgotten what I put in that book. I haven't looked at it for 2 or 3 weeks, and I've not been on it every single day and just living in that world, in that book, and those characters. And I love a good editor. A really good editor will work with you, not against you. And one of the things I've done over my career to keep improving my own craft is get an editor, and then they'll pick out one problem I constantly have, like, you're not using semicolons right, or you use directionals. I like to call them directionals. It's not really a term, I think, but directionals, like, I like to write deep first person point of view.
Yeah.
And directionals are like, looked at. I looked at you and I said,
that's
not necessary. We're in a scene, we're going. I'm like, I look at Sarah, and I don't have to put the little extra words that slow down the reading for the reader.
And it kicks you out of deep POV
Keeps
sometimes.
you out of deep point of view a little bit.
Again, for anyone who's new to writing fiction, can you describe what deep POV means?
It means to really, because you're in first person, trying to immerse the reader in that person's headspace. You want them to be the character. And I always try to put as little friction between the reader creating into my book as possible, so they can really get it and enjoy it. It's one of the things I do. Like, I've been working recently with artists to create, just art pieces for my thing. And then, like, the last artist is like, well, describe the female for me. And I had to go back and realize I never described the woman. I don't know what she looks like because I write mostly from a female point of view because I'm writing romance.
She's not thinking about what she looks like.
She doesn't think what she looks like.
Right.
I don't want to, because I want whoever the reader is to project herself in there so it looks like her.
I like that.
I don't know what each individual reader looks like, so I don't think about that. And I like to I draw enough of a picture that people will create the rest of it.
Cool.
Fill in the holes.
That's cool.
So that's kind of that.
Cool. Again, Sharon, do you have any questions so far? Anything that's come to mind?
I mean, it was really good what you're saying about the editing, because I've already started doing that. I haven't even finished my first draft, and I've already been going back and editing what I have. So that was really good. And I'm curious because, like, when I do this, it'll be like my first published like book. Like, I haven't published one before, and I get the whole thing with perfectionism, but I feel like I'm curious to hear like how you published your first one, or the story behind publishing your first one, because to me, I'm like, if this is the first thing that goes out from me, I'm like, oh, like, I really do feel like it has to be perfect. Because
I know. Okay, so Jim, you were on a cruise, and then you guys both wrote down your
Dreams.
And you, from what I remember from when you told me the story before, neither of you knew that the other one was going to write that down.
Yeah, we
right?
had no idea.
You had no idea that you both had that shared goal, even though you've been married for a year. So there you go, right? That happens. And then you came home, found out you were completely destitute, which I'm so sorry, by the way. That totally sucks.
It was a thing. It was
but
interesting.
It was the universe going, kick in the pants, go do what you actually want to be doing in life, right?
It'd been my lifelong goal to be a writer. I mean, and I've literally been writing and telling stories since I was like 5 years old.
Cool.
You know, my first book is actually written in crayon and all stapled together, and I think it's still in my dad's basement.
He was published at 5. That's impressive.
So, you know, so that's kind of was my lifelong dream. So,
cool.
So we have this situation where I have 3 months worth of money, and I've been self-employed all my life, and I have no idea how to go get a job. So I'm kind of like, all right, we better figure this out. And we actually started writing nonfiction. The first 2 books we wrote were nonfiction. We thought, well, we had this idea, we were going to kind of do this thing, and they were not selling great, but they were out there. But I've had this story idea in my head, so I sat down and I wrote a story in 4.5 hours. She made a cover for it.
Wow.
We published it, and it made 10 times more money than the nonfiction books.
Oh my gosh!
Now, to be clear, it's not a huge amount of money. I think it was like $200 or $300, but we're like, holy crap! I mean, they made that like in 2 days, and like these other books have been out for a couple months, and we're like, oh my god, okay. So I wrote another book in that same series, and then what happened was, and we've talked about this and some of the other stuff we've done, Sarah, is I accidentally wrote a good romance. I didn't know I was writing. We were marketing it as romance, but I wasn't writing romance. I was writing more of an urban fantasy.
Okay.
And we just didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
And I accidentally write a good romance, and that became an Amazon bestseller.
Wow.
At which point I'm like, okay, good, this is working. And then I wrote some really bad books that did not do well because, again, I didn't know what I was doing. And I figured that, and then I started studying the technology and the understanding of what a romance is. I mean, we're marketing romances. We knew romance was where the money was at because romance readers are voracious. And I also, you know, I'm a romantic at heart. Anyway, that's just who I am. So I'm like, okay, good. I just got to understand this genre. I wasn't reading it. So I started reading it and understanding it. And then we just took off, you know.
Yeah.
And eventually we landed on the current pen name that I have, and have done very well with it.
Yeah. That is so cool. What a great story. Okay, Sharon, do you have any other questions for Jim before we carry on?
I'm good for now.
Cool. Okay. Glad you're here. Thanks. One thing I want to say before we go on actually is, so I had obviously written and published a couple, just I think 2 fiction books before I met you. But one thing that has really changed for me since starting to work with you and learn more about the craft of writing stories is going to the bookstore and just pulling all of my favorite books that I read in the genre I'm trying to write off the shelf, and then taking a notebook and literally going to the book and going, okay, where does the inciting incident happen? Where is the meet cute if it is a romance, right? Where, right? Like, where does the climax happen? What page number is that? What chapter is that? And then now that I'm trying to write a series, a trilogy, going and finding my favorite fantasy trilogies. And again, where does book 2 start? How does book 2 start? You know, when you say phrases like in media res, which means, you know, it's a Latin phrase, it just means starting in the middle, right? How do they actually do that? What does the first scene, first step of the first page look like?
How to do it.
And just doing that with enough books that I loved, that I know that, okay, now I can see what I'm doing wrong, and not even wrong. Like you said, like every author has sort of their own style, but what am I doing that is not meeting and exceeding reader expectations? Because if you think about it as a creative, you can do no wrong except to fail to meet readers' expectations. Really, you can do no other wrong, right? Like, it's your creative work. But that is the only, if you want to make a living, that's the only thing you can do wrong, is to fail to meet reader expectations.
Sure, absolutely. And even if I was writing nonfiction, this is what I would do. I would pick up my favorite nonfiction books that were like what I'm trying to write.
Right.
And I would study how they're structured. I would study how they put it together. How's the flow of the information come in? And then I would model off of that. Now, again, imitation is sincere form of family, but don't plagiarize it. Just model it off of it. Understand, how is this structured? How do they present the information so that it builds towards the point I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah.
I want to say. It's such that right there, and that's what I learned to do, figured out early on. And once I figured that out, it was easy after that. And it was a lot of work. One, doing it, two, training my brain to think like that. And now years later, I just do it instinctively. I don't even break books down hardly ever anymore.
Yeah. But again, it's one thing to have it become conceptual, right? So where like now it's just a concept of how to accomplish it in your head, and it becomes kind of almost, I want to say, muscle memory, for lack of a better word.
For sure.
Right?
That's the best way to look at it.
But yeah.
And sometimes you'll still get surprised. Like, I was also wrote a romantasy, but before I wrote that, I wanted to go back to the granddaddy of all romantasies, which is Core Thorn and Roses. And I got an audiobook and I listened through it, and I thought that was okay. I mean, I wasn't honestly blown away at the first book. I was like, it was okay. And then I get in the second book and something happens in the second book. I'm not going to put a spoiler out there, but something happens in the second book. And I'm like, you can't do that. That's absolutely against the rules. You cannot do that. That breaks all the rules of a romance.
Right.
And then she just ran with it, and I'm like, holy Moses. And then I was blown away by the book. I'm like, oh, wow.
Book 2 is so much better.
better book, better written book. And then, like I said,
she broke the rules.
She broke the rules. I'm like, you can't do that. And so it was very interesting that I could still be surprised after all these years of writing romance. I've been doing this over 10 years now, so I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing a little bit.
That's cool.
And it's good to get surprised.
Okay, well, I know you had more to share with us, so I'll stop interrupting with all my questions.
You're fine. We've got 2 more subjects I was going to cover that I thought would be helpful.
Yeah, totally.
And the next one is, like I said, I've written 200 books in 10 years, a little over 200 books now. So consistency and discipline. This is one of my keys to what I do. And this is one of the things people ask me about. Well, how do you do that? How do you write so much? And really, it's a matter of being disciplined and consistently doing it. And I did, back during the lockdown, I bought the Masterclass series. And I listened through everybody on there that was a writer. And some of them were really interesting. Some of them were just pretentious. And some of them, like, really had nothing to say, but they wanted to sound important. I'm not going to name names because everybody's who they are. But the one name I will name was Neil Gaiman. And I know he's not popular, right now because of whatever.
Sure.
But he said something that stuck with me in his class. He said, when people, and this kind of ties into other things we've been talking about. He says, when writers come up to him and they say, I want to be a writer like you. And he would look at them and he would say, good, write something. And he says, and then about half of them would look at him and say, I've got this book I'm writing. He says, good, now finish something. So this comes back into the being disciplined, and it's a consistency thing. Shut off that editor and get the book written.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the most common problems with writers. We have this great idea, and then we start writing it, and then you have another great idea, so you start writing that one, or you get so tied up doing this. I mean, and we're all guilty of it. That's the way the creative brain works right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I started writing this romantasy, and I'm like, I had the whole thing outlined, and I've got the whole structure done, and then I've read another book, and then I watched a show, and I was sitting there, and it hit me when I was watching that show. Oh my God, I could take that idea and that idea, and I literally created another whole world.
Oh wow!
I've got 30,000 words worth of notes on this new world that I want to write, including an outline for 3 books in it. And I'm like, I really want to go write that world, but I got to finish the one I'm on.
Yeah.
So we've got to finish what we're on, and that's discipline.
Yeah. Again, for 10 years, I talked about the story and worked on the story and never finished a single draft. And then finally, like you said, just get the editor out of there and went, I'm not going to stop until this story. And what really worked for me, Jim, was someone told me, again, I can't remember who it was. I wish I could credit them because it worked so well, but it was, you're writing the first draft for you, not anybody else. So just tell yourself the story. And when I started doing that, I just told myself the story and finished writing it down. I was like, oh, look, a finished book.
It definitely happens, doesn't it?
Totally.
So from my viewpoint, consistency is about doing something every day, and that's a habit. And there's books about this, and it's something that I think people like. I mean, we're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And so if you want to be a writer, make a habit of writing. It doesn't matter how much you write every day, but I personally write every day. I mean, if I don't write in a day, honestly, I feel like I had a bad day. I'm like, I don't know what did I do with my time?
Yeah.
But that's after years and years and years of it. And it doesn't have to be every day. You can decide 3 days a week, I'm going to write. I'm going to write for 15 minutes because that's what works with my life. You know, we all got this work and kids and family and whatever we have to do, whatever's going on in your life.
Totally.
You know, that it keeps you busy. And you can just carve out that little bit of time, but that's your time. That each one of those little niches is your time. And that's what you're going to do in that time. You're going to write consistently and track how much you write. And then try to do it a little better.
Yeah.
And keep doing that consistently, because it will add up. And that's the discipline of it. You know, I have a very structured schedule. I do a lot with my life. I have 4 kids living at home still that I'm taking care of. I'm now sole father. I'm sole parent to the 4 kids at home. I work 40 hours for my church, and then I run my publishing business. And that's why people are always like, how do you keep up with all of that?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm disciplined. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm up and I'm having my coffee, and 7:15, I'm doing this. And I have my day very structured. And that's the only way I keep ahead of it all.
Yeah.
And it, you know, and then I hire assistants things I don't have time to do, and I'll hire somebody to do that or whatever, you know, and that works. But it's about that consistency and that discipline and just showing up every day and doing it. If you want to be a writer, just show up and be a writer. Right. And then decide, I want to be an author, finish something, publish it. And even if it's terrible, it doesn't matter. Publish it under a pen name. Publish the most awful thing you ever wrote in your life. Just see what happens. Somebody might like it.
Yeah.
And they'll give you some money for it.
It's funny because, again, you know, I consider that I'm still learning my craft when it comes to fiction. And yet there are so many readers, even under the pen name that I published it, right? There are so many readers who reach out and like, this was the most amazing. And I'm like, that was a piece of garbage. You know, like in the back of my mind, sometimes I'm just like, I've read so many better books than this, you know? But I have readers just like hounding me going, where's the next one? And I'm like, okay, well, I better get into gear. And I think that also, you know, as someone who has lots of readers now, isn't that just so much more motivational than when it's only you trying to write a book for you?
Yeah.
I love your idea of just like publish it, because then you have people who are hounding you for the next one or sending you reviews, even if it's not very often in the beginning, right? And it really does motivate you to keep going.
It keeps you going, you know, and it gives you
good times and bad.
It pushes you, and you'll find out. I mean, if the book is terrible, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Even if the book's
that's the great thing about a pen name.
They'll tell you. You know, but that's why you write under a pen name, because you can just burn it down.
Yeah.
I needed a new, what we call a newsletter magnet, and that's a free book you give away to get people onto your newsletter.
Yeah.
And
reader magnet
for the new pen name that I launched, and I'm like, I don't have time to write a whole new book, so I pulled out the very first book. That first book I wrote in 4.5 hours. I pulled it back out, and because I've always loved that story, and I was reading it, and I mean, talk about cringe and embarrassing, and I'm like, man, I published this, and like I got all these reviews on this book, and I'm like, this book is terrible, you know, like what was I thinking? But I rewrote it, and I just modernized it. I brought it up to my new skill level and everything, and now I'm using it as a reader magnet for my new pen name.
Nice.
Just, you know, a book you just give away. But it's very interesting to do that because a lot of people liked it, you know, but I'm looking at it now and I'm like, this book is awful. I mean, this is really bad, you know.
Well, I think that's a good sign that you can see that you've improved over the years, right?
I always I'm a very big fan of Alice Cooper. And Alice Cooper always says, I haven't written the perfect song yet.
Wow.
I haven't given the perfect concert yet. And when I do, I'm done. You know, he's always striving to write a better song and to put on a better show for his fans.
Cool.
And I always found that fascinating because, you know, this is a guy who's at the top of his game. You know, he's 76 years old, still fills up arenas.
Wow.
But he's still got that level of dissatisfaction. And I think as an artist, it's good to keep that.
Yeah.
Never be completely satisfied. Always be striving to be a little better. You know, always, because again, perfectionism is your enemy.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to, if you're completely complacent, you're like just going to keep cranking the same thing out. Okay. Harlequin Romance made millions of dollars doing that. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. It can work, but I don't think you'll be happy as a creative and as an artist in your own right. So
totally.
That's kind of my thoughts on that anyway.
I agree.
I've got my last topic. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Okay, cool. I'm really excited about this one because I feel like I'm on your newsletter.
Yeah.
I love your newsletter. I think you are totally killer at speaking to thousands and thousands of people in a way that makes them each one feel like you are speaking to them. And that is a power for whether you run a business or a book business
Yeah.
of any kind whatsoever. Newsletters are really killer and they convert way better than social media does. Anyway, I could go on a whole roll, but I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about this. So you've got your reader magnet. Before you dive in, can I ask you a couple of questions? Sure. Just professional curiosity. Yeah. Okay, so what have you seen other than like you said, like writing a whole nother story? Mm-hmm. What have you seen work really well as reader magnets, and what things have you seen not work very well for your audience?
For me, I've always done best with giving away a whole novella or a novel.
Okay.
Short stories have never worked for me as well.
Okay.
A lot of authors in romance especially are very successful with bonus scenes.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about.
I've done a few, and I've never gotten, I haven't seen big enough numbers to make it worth the effort to me. Okay. Because especially, I find them very hard to write because when I'm done with the book and I'm done with that set of characters, they're done for me, and it's just not easy for me to carry on.
Yeah.
That's kind of a me thing. I think they could be good, like if my brain worked differently. I don't know. Yeah. My creative doesn't work for that. Because like I said, I know authors who are killing it with those. I mean, they get hundreds of signups to get that next thing. I'm like, hey, good for you. I don't know. Just doesn't work for me. My best bet has always been a free book. I don't worry about organic versus paid subscribers. I don't care.
Okay.
I care about the size of my newsletter, period.
Okay.
And I always want it growing, and I always keep an eye on, like, am I gaining more than I'm losing? Because you're going to lose some.
Yeah.
That's just fact of life.
So when you say you don't care if they're paid or do you keep track of at what date your ad cost to build your network, your newsletter has actually become profitable, or you just don't care? You just want those numbers to go up?
I don't pay very often for it. I do a lot of promotional things to get, like I do a lot of swaps with other authors.
Yeah, newsletter swaps.
Newsletter swaps. We do a lot of newsletter builders. I have done paid. I've gotten book bubs before. I did a Facebook ad for a year or so, and we were paying, as long as it was under 50 cents a name, I thought it was great.
Okay.
You know, that was kind of my break point for me, just because I didn't want to invest the money in a long-term thing, you know. But mostly a lot of authors will talk about they don't want freebie seekers. They want only organic. They've read my book. They liked my book, and they only signed up from the link in the back of my book.
Yeah. I honestly don't agree with that.
I don't
I can see you don't either.
I don't agree with that because, you know, you're not looking for people you've already got.
Right.
You're looking to get new people introduced into your worlds. You know, so that's very, very, very important in my mind, is the size of the newsletter, and the bigger you can make it, the better off you are.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing you own.
Totally.
If you've got your own website, you own that, and you own your newsletter. That's it. Amazon owns everything else, or Barnes & Noble, or whoever you're publishing with. They own all of it.
Cool.
And they're not going to tell you.
Right.
You know, that's theirs. That's their customers. You know, so your job is to capture them and bring them into your world and onto your universe.
Sure.
So, you know, just in general, when you're starting out, though, how do you get fans? What do you start with? And honestly, I've always kept the idea, and I think this is part of why my newsletter works, because I look at every fan as one person. I don't look at, I have the numbers. I know what my numbers are, but I don't write to the numbers. I write to a person, and I talk to a person.
Yeah.
For individual readers, and that's my biggest secret. In my head, they're not just kind of gray blob of whatever. They're people, and they want to know more about me and the world, or, you know, they want to know more about my pen name, because it's, you know, not me. It's a kind of a conglomeration of me and other things.
Sure.
You know, so that's kind of how I start out with that. Now, I've made this I do put a warning out at this point, or want to. Don't pay people for things at this point.
Like in the beginning.
Starting out.
Yeah.
When you're starting out. There are newsletter builder services, and some of them are very, very legit, but make sure you vet them out, because I put this out because, especially with the rise of AI, every single day I get 5 to 20 emails from scam artists wanting to introduce me to their book club for a
Yeah.
low price of $50 or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
I've seen them too.
It's every day.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy to me. They're like picking up books from my very first pen name that still are just floating out there, and I haven't touched them in 10 years. And
Wow.
I burnt that pen name years ago. You know, and they're like, I read your book and oh, it was so amazing. And it's just blah, 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 blah. And they know enough about the book because they've either pirated it or something
Yeah.
to make it sound like the first one. Because I actually interacted with the first one I got. I'm like, oh, this is
Wow.
interesting. This is the first time I got one. And then we bounced emails for like 10, 12 emails.
Yeah.
And I ended up giving them a copy of the book to give to their book club.
Yeah.
And then they wanted $150. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. I just gave you something for free. I don't expect to also pay for it. So
Right.
that's when I figured out those are scams. And then they started pouring in.
Yeah.
You'll also get people wanting to make book trailers for you.
Yeah.
I haven't ever seen a return on those.
Yeah.
Not like that. I am doing really well. I will say, and this is a side note, I'm doing really well right now with Reels on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. Same.
I'm
actually.
doing paid ones, you know, and they're doing really good. They're like better than my still ads.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing the same thing with my fiction.
But I pay 30 cents a click, you know. I got one that's running at 10 cents a click right now.
Wow. Go you.
That's my new one that I just put up. So we'll see how long that lasts. So, I mean, but that's a whole other, that's paid advertising for a specific thing that I'm creating and I'm putting out there. Don't pay somebody a bunch of money to make an AI video for you because that's what they'll do.
Yeah.
The biggest thing also on that is build a catalog. It's very hard to make your money back on paid services if you don't have read through.
And again, for the ones who are newer to fiction, when we say catalog, we mean have multiple books, you know, especially in the same universe or the same series, so that what he said is read through. That means like the percentage of people who read your first book who go on to read book 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's a lot harder to be profitable on just one book, especially in fiction. Whereas in the nonfiction area, unless you're writing a memoir, most of the time it's easy to be profitable with one book as a nonfiction author because you have an entire business behind that book with usually higher ticket services that you're selling to that book reader. So it's a completely different business model when you're doing fiction because you don't have something that's thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars to sell to someone who bought that $5 book or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And that does flip the paradigm on it because I am speaking from a fiction viewpoint.
Yeah.
You know, and because that's what I know and do. Because you know most of the books on Amazon are like $4.
Right.
You know, and so I make $2.70, I think. And then if they read it in Kindle Unlimited, I make like $1.30.
Crazy.
On the whole book. You know,
we could go down a whole rabbit hole about how unethical that business model is, but
it's very destructive.
Yeah.
It's
to
good
writers.
And bad. But anyway. So you don't make a lot of money, so you can't spend a lot of money on one book and expect to make money back. And the whole idea that I want people to make money doing this. You absolutely must have a newsletter, period. Have a newsletter. I don't care if it's fiction, nonfiction, have a newsletter. You must have one. It's the one thing you control.
How often should you email your newsletter if you only have, let's say, one book and you just published?
And this is where I disagree with most people. Most authors, a majority of authors I know, not most, but a majority of authors I know and talk to, they're like, I send an email whenever I have a new book. I'm like, I don't.
Definitely not often enough.
I send every week.
Okay.
Like clockwork.
Yeah.
Every Friday. Friday is my newsletter day. I send a newsletter out every Friday.
Cool.
And I talk about what I'm working on. I talk about the cats. I talk about whatever's made me mad this week.
I've noticed that. I love your newsletter though. Like I said, it just gives people such a hidden doorway into the life of someone who is creating art that is so entertaining. You know what I mean? And how often have we wished that some of these authors would do the same?
It's interesting because it's only been, I think it was 3 years ago, I decided to be honest with the newsletter. I used to kind of have this happy-go-lucky and everything is wonderful, and I can't let anybody know that I'm all stressed out, that Amazon screwed me over on this, and that they did this, and this happened, and everything's not okay, right? And finally, there was something on, I think it was something to do with AI was coming out, and it was getting big, and people were freaking out about it, and something, and I just decided, and I'm just gonna be honest. I'm just gonna tell people what I think about this, and I'm gonna be really real.
Yeah.
You know, and I was, and my inbox flooded. So,
Wow.
you know, one of the keys to a newsletter, Google's automatically going to put your newsletter either into spam or the promotions tab.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be in those tabs. You
Right.
definitely don't want to be spam. You don't really want to be in promotion tab because people don't look there.
Right.
You want to land in the inbox if at all possible.
Yeah.
And one of the key metrics they look at, do people respond to the newsletter?
Yeah.
Do they interact with it? Well, then they're interested in it. You know, it ranks you up.
Yeah.
So when I was really honest, I swear I got 500 or 600 emails that week back, just
Wow.
out of nowhere. And I mean, this is from where I get one or two every couple weeks. You know, so I was like, okay, well, that resonated. That was a learning moment.
Yeah.
You know, so I kept doing that. And then at some point I made a bunch of people mad because I was honest that we were using at that point in time AI covers, AI art for the covers, because I write alien romance, and there are no aliens for me to go get photo shoots done with.
I don't know why you can't be more authentic. Like, let's go to Mars. Let's go. Come on, let's go find some aliens.
I mean, me and Elon are going to hang out together, and we're going to, you know, and it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
But so I did that, and I was honest with them. I'm like, look, but I felt like we were doing very ethical AI usage, and I talked about that because we'd actually draw the sketch out that we wanted.
Yeah.
So it was actually our sketch, not anybody else's art. Now I know it learned on everybody else's art, but trust me, AI's here.
Yeah,
That's
right.
it. And then we would have it iterate into something that was usable for cover art. And it was interesting because I lost over 2,000 subs that week.
Wow.
2,000 people unsubscribed.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh crap, I better shut up. And I thought, no, those aren't my people.
Yeah, right.
It's fine. Bye. And so I just doubled down on it. I doubled down on being honest. I doubled down on like, look, 2,000 of you left. You know?
Rough week. All right.
Bye.
It's funny you say that because I just have to go there for a second. We're going to segue to hate speech and cancel culture and how destructive that can be as a creative if you let that, like, you have to develop such a thick skin in today's world.
You do.
And not to say that you didn't in the past. I'm sure there was a version of that for people who lived in the offline world. But today, with newsletters, with social media, it's just so prevalent. And I find that as a business owner who runs her business almost majorly online, and as a creative who does use AI art in my reels, I don't use it for my cover. I do pay a cover artist, and I don't use it in my book, but I do use it to create skits of my stories. And there's the things people will say to you when they don't have to face you, right? It's like that little cute.
It's horrifying.
It is horrifying. It really makes you question humanity sometimes, and like, it's really interesting. And I have found good practices for myself of ways to just like get out of that headspace if I do get pulled down by some comment, you know, or just ways to grow a thicker skin about it so it doesn't affect me as much as it used to. But I'm curious what your successful actions are when, you know, sometimes someone will reply and they're saying something nasty, or how do you get out of that and get back into your creative modes you can write?
I usually I keep a logbook of positive reviews.
Smart.
That I look at if I get really down.
Yeah.
Most of the time I make fun of them. I do. I mean, like, I get pretty snarky.
Laughter's the best medicine sometimes.
I mean, I have one review that I've kept, and it was a 1-star review. And in one of my books, I had, because I've got this ongoing series, and part of the idea of the series is, you know, it was a devastated planet and there was no women left. All the alien women died, and so I was introducing the idea that their souls had gone to Earth and now were returning because I don't write fluffy romance. I write romance with depth and meaning, and I'm telling important stories to me, you know, and saying what I'm thinking about the universe, not just, hey, why? Because I said so.
Yeah, there's real deep meaning behind it.
And I didn't really like the idea of fated mates, which is very popular.
Yeah.
In the trope I'm using. But just because, without a story behind it. So I wrote this story behind it. And in the book, I really laid that idea. I made it very front and center with one character's beliefs, that character was his beliefs, that this is my reincarnated mate, right?
Cool.
And it was a good book. It was a well received. It sold well, which is fine. But I got this review on it. Man, when I first got it, it killed me. I was like, this woman just shredded the book. She says, this whole reincarnation thing, that's just a line too far. And I was sitting there, and at first it bothered me. And then I was thinking about it. I'm like, now you're okay with a 7-foot-tall alien dragon with alien male anatomy mating with a human woman who traveled all the way across. All that's okay. But reincarnation's a line too far.
Why are you reading? Why are you reading spicy sci-fi alien romance?
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
And
that
so
is kind of entertaining.
Anytime I get a bad review now, I go look at that one. And I just start laughing, and I'm like, okay, that's, I don't write for everybody. I write for my fans and people who want what I write. So it doesn't bother me that much anymore. I do get weird comments. So like on one of my reels I made, I got a comment that this is AI crap. And I'm like, that's absolutely not AI crap. That's a cover from 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And the only thing, it's animated, which is just, it slides onto the screen. That's it. There's no AI.
People have become so obsessed with being anti-AI, and it really has become a bit of a cult to like be anti-AI.
Sure.
And I also have covers that predate AI, and that people have like put hate talk on, just to have something to complain about. And it's really interesting. But anyway, no, that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing.
It's definitely my biggest advice is every time you get a positive review, start yourself a little book, a binder, and print them out and put them in your binder so you can go back and look at them. And so you can remember why you do it, because those are the people you're writing for.
Right.
You're not writing for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. I write for people who want to read what I write. And if you don't, great, that's fine. I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet.
And there's so many books out there. It's not like you lack books to read.
I would think Amazon's got to be closing in on 1 billion books on the site now. So I mean, go read one of the other ones.
If they're not past it. Yeah.
Carry on.
Cool.
So I don't stress that. But staying on the idea, your newsletter is the most important thing. And to me, your newsletter is your audience.
Okay.
That is, and I know I have a bigger audience than what's in my newsletter, just based on sales and everything else. Not everybody's going to stay on your newsletter or whatever, but those are the people I can connect with. Those are the people that I have built one person at a time. And I have fans who have been with me since my very first pen name.
Wow.
And some of them know that we've changed pen names. And they've come along with me, and like, I know their lives,
That's so cool.
I know a lot about them. I have a few rules about how I handle my newsletter. I thought I'd share a few things, kind of successful actions I do. First and foremost, I answer every single email that I get from a reader ever. I don't have an assistant do it. And sometimes I fall way behind. At one point I was 4,000 emails behind, and it took me 3 weeks to catch up.
Wow.
And that's literally what I did every day for
I wish
2
I had
hours.
that problem, Jim.
I was having problems with my newsletter, my service provider, so I kept asking them questions. So everybody was responding, "Yeah, I'm getting you. Where's your?" And so I was trying to fix that, and I just fell behind.
Yeah.
It's the most I've ever had, but it was crazy, and it took me forever to catch up. But I answer every single one. It's not an AI. It's not anybody else. I read it. I understand it, and I answer any questions. And I comment on their life. So they'll send me pictures of their lives, their pets, their plants.
Cool.
We've become friends almost over the years. We've never met in real life, but we've become friends over the years. I write every single week. We went over that.
Yeah.
I think consistency is important. It doesn't have to be weekly, but even if you do monthly, be consistent. Write on a basis, and so they kind of know what to expect. Like, hey, I haven't heard from Jim this week. What's happening? Right?
Yeah.
Is everything okay? I've literally gotten emails in, like, I've been running late. I didn't get the email out till Saturday because I lost track of the days of the week, which happens.
Yeah, sure.
When you don't leave your house ever.
Post-COVID era.
Yeah.
A lot of us can relate.
Like, I don't interact with the rest of the world on the same time track that everybody else is on. So some days I don't know what day of the week it is.
That's really funny.
And I've gotten emails like, hey, your newsletter didn't come out. Did you miss it? What's happening? Are you okay? I'm like,
wow.
That's really sweet.
That's beautiful.
And then we talked about this a little bit too. I'm very honest with my readers, and I talk to them about things they might be interested in. Readers, if you're an author, want to know about being an author.
Yeah.
They're very curious about it. They want to understand. They think you're magical. A lot of them want to be a writer and don't know how to. Now, I've talked to a lot of authors, and a lot of people don't want to share much about themselves. They're like, well, I'm not built that way. I don't want to share anything about my life. That's fine. Make something up. You're an author.
I like that. And you have created sort of a persona that goes with one of your pen names or some of your pen names. And I like that idea. Not to say that you should, but again, it's like they're expecting fiction. It's not, you know, I mean, I have a pen name, but it's not for the same reason that I think most people do. I only write under a pen name because I'm writing about a sister who passed tragically, and my parents don't need constant reminders of it when they look at my social media, you know. But even that, I mean, Darcy is me. There is no, it's not like she has her own world. Whereas you've really created this beautiful persona. So I think that's fascinating.
It is a whole thing. It's a very interesting conglomeration of me and my wife. And, you know, it's like the little bits and pieces of both of us have gone into this. And it's like, it's very much taken on a life of its own. And it's just very fascinating. I try to break it down very much in my head because I'm afraid I'll destroy the magic of it, because I don't really know how it works, but it's like a real, when I'm writing is that, and even when I'm sitting down writing the books, I'm writing in that viewpoint. I'm writing from this other person's
viewpoint. It's a mock-up.
It definitely is.
That's cool.
And then I write to my readers with what I consider reality. You know, I've gotten to know them, like I said, over the years. And so I write about things that, you know, are real, you know, like if Amazon's hurting me, I you know, or they're changing the way things work, I write about that. I did a whole series for weeks about how to use libraries, you know, because I was figuring it out. I didn't know libraries were doing digital books and everything. And I'm like, oh, well, this is really cool. So but then like, it's very complicated. You know, it's not necessarily easy. I mean, if you can't, because you can do it all online and you never actually have to go to the library.
Oh, cool.
With certain libraries in certain areas, but every area you're in, it's different. And every library has a different set of rules.
Oh, wow.
So
it's complicated.
I was figuring a lot of this out, and I was just sharing what I learned about it, because I'm like, I love libraries. I grew up living in the library in my hometown. I was 7 years old and I worked at the library because they let me read more books if I worked there. Like,
that's really cool.
The old lady who ran it, you know, this is back in the dark ages, because back in the 70s, you know, she wouldn't let me read outside the children's section. And I'd read all those books, and I'm like, I want to read these other books. There's all these books over here. And I wanted to read all those books. And she's like, well, you can't read all those. You're 7 years old. Like, but I want to read them, you know. And so I ended up working there. And then she says, well, and since I'm pitting them all away, and I learned the Dewey Decimal System, and I could put the books away and everything, and then she started letting me read them. So I just started reading my way through the rest of the library.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
And then I also recommend, you know, if you can share something personal, like I share my cats. You know, if you have a pet or some hobby, I don't share pictures of myself or the kids or anything like that, because it's a dangerous world, and I don't want to put too much out there where it could be found too easy. But the cats, people love the stories about my cats, you know, and I talk about, you know, what's happening with the cats sometimes. I haven't been doing that as much lately because there's just been a lot going on, but you know, if like anything's exciting with the cats, but every week there's pictures of the cats. The cats are quite famous. If you're running this as a business, it's very exciting because your cats now become a tax deduction.
Right.
All
that cat food gets to be a write-off.
Food is a write-off. I'm amortizing my boy cat because I was smart about when I bought him. So I just went and I said he's on my amortization schedule because he's an expensive purebred cat.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of benefits to being business owners. People don't always realize.
You know, I could really go on and on about that, because like my cell phone is in the business. The business rents my office space from me. You know, my internet is paid for by the business because it's all a cost deduction.
Right.
But basically, the whole idea then is to be real and remember you're building one person at a time. And as soon as you get that first person on there, just keep writing to them, you know, and then you'll add another one and another one and another one, and build that newsletter up. And you can share stories about the writing. You can share stories about what you're working on. And it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction, write about what you're working on. If you're stuck, write about that. I mean, I'm stuck. I don't really know what I want to do with this one chapter. The more real you're willing to be with the readers, the more they'll respond to you.
Cool.
And then you'll start building kind of a quick relationship with them. And I think that, don't share more than you want. I kind of touched on that. you know, and the technology is changing so much and so fast right now. There's so many things happening, and everybody's trying to shove AI into everything. And sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it makes it worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of, interesting,
Mhm.
on that.
So what software are you using right now for your email list and your website?
For my website, I'm on Shopify.
Okay.
And if you want to sell, I highly recommend Shopify. It's $39 a month, I think. So it's an investment.
Yeah.
But so I did that later. I started out with what's called WooCommerce, which you can look up online. WooCommerce is workable.
Okay.
It's very, it's a lot more difficult.
Okay.
It takes a lot more know-how to get WooCommerce to do interesting things.
Yeah. I've used both, so I know what you mean. It's a
Yeah.
lot bigger learning curve, I think.
Yeah, a lot bigger.
Shopify is a lot more drag and click.
Drag and click. It's very simple. And they've now integrated an AI into it, which is actually super helpful. It's like the most helpful AI I've ever seen, because like literally I'm like, I had a lady write me this week. She's like, "Do you not ship to New Zealand?" I'm like, "I thought I did. I don't know." So I get in and I'm like, why is this not shipping to New Zealand? Why is this not on? And it says, "Oh, you've got to go in here and you look at this and you do this and do this." And it told me exactly what to do. And I just went in and was able to set it all up and get it all working.
That's awesome.
And then I sold some stuff to New Zealand last night, which is great. I'm like, okay, good.
Great.
But it turned out international shipping was completely off. So
wow.
Shopify turned all that on, got it all fixed, and it integrates with the shipping services and everything. So
yeah,
I just find for me it's really worth it, because my current goal is to move as many people to my website as possible.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to break free of Kindle Unlimited. That's
Sure.
kind of my personal game I'm playing. I just don't like the system.
Yeah, and I mean, it's profit margins that are going down, not up.
Exactly.
So why not?
I used to be able to tell you if you could be what we call a mid-lister. If you're selling on Amazon and you're a mid-lister, your books are ranking somewhere between 5,000 and 50,000 on the overall store.
Okay.
And you're going to make a decent living in that range. You're going to make, most people, if you get enough books out, are making six figures if your books are in that range.
Sure.
It's not working that way anymore.
Wow.
I've got, I'm still not making nearly as much as I was before. And I've got books ranking in the top 5,000.
Wow.
So it's been very interesting. Like the ranks aren't equating to the money, and it's because the value of a read in Kindle Unlimited is going down.
Right, not up.
And it's not going up.
Which is silly.
Yeah, it's not kept place.
Have you had any success with selling like book swag and things like that for your super fans?
I have. I'm really getting into that now, actually. I started working with a new 3D printing company here 6 months ago, I think.
Okay.
5 or 6 months ago. And they are hardcore working with me, trying to get me to, they've set a dollar amount they want to get me to.
Okay.
And so we meet every week. It's very interesting. And I'm also, they're brand new to the author world. So I've been their door to the author world, and
they must like that.
I'm really helping them understand how authors think, and giving them a lot of feedback every week on their app. But they have an app that builds into Shopify. Okay. And then I can send them anything, and they've now designed hoodies, which are embroidered, like embroidered hoodies.
Super cool.
Which is super cool. They just came out with, I think I'm the first author to offer it, Kindle cases that are custom.
Oh.
Custom Kindle cases printed, like one's printed with the book cover. I've got another one that's got a new chibi art I just did.
Cool.
They did a bookmark for me, which is so incredible. Like they had this bookmark and it was just kind of flat and cool. And I said, and it had this like little 3D dragon on it. I'm like, well, that's okay. But I said, mine's actually an alien guy. And I said, here's the art. Yeah. Can you do that? And they actually took this 2D art, turned it into this 3D where he's coming up over the book.
Whoa.
And I'm like, oh, this is really cool.
That is really cool. Okay.
So I've started working with them and doing more merchandise. Because Romantasy, and I started getting into that more when I started writing Romantasy. Romantasy fans like stuff.
Yeah, that's why I was curious, because I know that's a big thing for them. Yes. The keychains and the all the stuff, all the stuff.
Science fiction romance readers are kind of like,
okay.
They don't seem to convert as well.
Gotcha.
Which is interesting.
It's interesting that it's genre specific.
It seems to be genre specific from so far, as far as I can tell.
Interesting. Well, Sharon, do you have any last questions for us?
I guess I have one. So when you do launch a new book, like
Mhm.
how far out do you start your marketing for that?
I'm the worst. Literally the worst. Usually about 5 days.
Oh, okay.
I,
But it
You're
sounds
so
like you have a
prolific. I
big
feel like that doesn't
readership
count.
though.
that's why I'm the worst, because I have been on the publish fast wheel, and I'm trying to get off of that.
Yeah.
So for like my first romantasy, I actually put it out and I started 2 months in advance.
I was gonna say, I thought that one started to promote a
Um,
lot sooner.
Yeah, I started promoting that one a lot sooner. Actually, like I didn't finish writing it until later than I thought. So I actually moved the launch date back 30 days
Okay.
to have more time to promote it, because I'm trying to break free of that. Just write a book a month, which is the way I've always made my money.
Yeah.
I'm trying to slow down a little bit. I've got a lot going on. But the ideal scenario, like what I'm working towards in my head, is 3 to 6 months. If you're writing romantasy, and I've been working with this, I've got an assistant I hired who's she works with a lot of romantasy authors and a lot of influencers and stuff. And if you want to get influencers to read your book, they want 6 months to a year.
Yeah, to read it.
So
Because they're also bigger books.
yeah,
They're
bigger
often very
book.
long.
They want to have time to read it, and then if they like it, they'll do the whole TikTok and Instagram and everything for you.
Right.
I can't work that far in the future yet. I'm just not there because I need to keep up. Uh, so I'm working on it, but I would recommend 2 to 3 months at least. I had a lot of success on my last launch using Goodreads giveaways, which was interesting. I hadn't done
Yeah,
that before.
I watched a webinar about them by Alessandra Torre recently.
Yeah, I watched that same one.
Did you? We were
Yeah.
probably on there at the same time. And actually, yeah, it's a really strong strategy I've found for launching your next book. So that's something to look into. I'm actually thinking about creating a checklist of, a book launch checklist to go with our course. And Sharon's got the course. So when we get that put together, I'll make sure you get a copy of it, Sharon.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do to create hype ahead of time, social media buzz. I'm reworking. I just learned a whole new way to do Instagram, which I'm now having my assistant on how to do, because it's really fascinating. This author's like kicking ass with Instagram. I'm like, holy Moses, she is.
Are you using ManyChat to automate it?
No.
No? Okay.
No,
I'm curious to hear
it's just the way she does all reels with the books, and the way she lays them out and the way she structures each reel is really cool. And when she started doing that, she said every reel's 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Because she used to do 15 and that wasn't really working. Now they're all 30 seconds. She tells a little story in each one. It's all one image too. It's just
interesting.
You'll
have to send that to me too, and we can share it.
It's very fascinating.
Cool.
And she shared her numbers with me, and I'm like, wow. Because she went from having 200, 300, 400 views on her reels to every one of them's going over 10K to 20K. And
this is all organic.
And it's all organic, and it's really showing in her sales.
Yeah, I'm sure.
She made like a 240% increase in sales with it. And I was like,
that's
holy
wild.
Moses.
That's really cool.
So,
well, Sharon, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that did answer.
Any other questions you got?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on with us. This will be available in the community, and then, we'll have to have you come by more often.
Okay.
Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Bye.